Welcome to Integrated Wellness Warrior, where we believe in building a strong body, clear mind, and a whole life. I'm Malia, a personal trainer and social worker, and here we believe in integrating physical fitness with mental well being to help you become your healthiest, happiest self. Let's embark on this journey together. So I'm starting this channel as a way to connect with other people who are just as interested in physical fitness and exercise as they are in mental health and well-being, and especially for those who understand that the two are inextricably linked. So a little bit about me before we start. I currently live in Florida with my fiance, with my son, my stepdaughter, and my sweet rescue dog, Ranger. I currently work full time, but when I'm not working, I always make sure to make time for exercise and physical activity. So when I'm not at work or at the gym, I love to spend time with my family, checking out new restaurants or exploring some of the sites in our city. I also really love to read. I love sewing. I also enjoy making jewelry, and I've been trying to learn for a few years of how to do my own acrylic nails, and I'm getting better, but it's still really hard. So my hat is totally off to you, nail techs. So, how did I get here and interested in physical fitness and mental health? So, let me back way up. Back in college, I had always been somebody who really loved science, and I wanted to know how everything worked. So, I majored in biology and environmental science for my undergrad degree, and I worked in biology jobs for several years. That was really fascinating to me. I enjoyed that work, but I was also pursuing my own fitness goals. So in college, I gained a lot of weight, and my health, even though I was in my early 20s, started to decline. My doctor said I was headed towards some conditions like high blood pressure and prediabetes, and I was really worried. So, just very gradually in college, and even after I graduated, I started to exercise, just doing cardio and walking on a treadmill and those kinds of things, really just to get started. It took me a few years, but after a while, I really fell in love with lifting weights, especially lifting heavy. I found that naturally I was kind of good at it and pretty strong. So I really decided to pursue that. I wanted to learn all that I could about how to lift correctly, how to improve my lifts. So I studied a lot on my own, but I also thought if I were to obtain my personal training certification, I could learn even more about it. So even though I was still working full time, I started to study for that certification, and it coincided with about the time my son was born 10 years ago. And after I got my certification, I was presented with an offer to work in a gym as a trainer. And I really couldn't pass it up. So I left my job working in biology and started working in gyms, which I did for several years. I even became the manager of several gyms. I just fell in love with not only improving my own fitness because of how much I had learned, but also training my clients. For me, it was fascinating to meet with them, learn more about their goals, why were they there, and together we'd come up with a plan to help them reach those goals. And seeing the happiness on their faces as they accomplish those goals was just incredible. So I really loved working in the gym, and I started getting pretty good at it. My schedule was always booked with clients, and my clients were reaching their goals, and I thought I would do it for the rest of my life. One of the things that was really challenging for me as a trainer, though, despite training lots of clients, I worked in pretty small gyms, and the income really wasn't there for me. I was struggling at that time as a single mother, and I knew that I needed to bring in more income for me and my son, but also needed things like a regular, predictable schedule and health insurance, some things that some personal trainers get, but I wasn't where I was working. So I was looking for ways to, increase my income and kind of stabilize my life, but that was kind of on the back burner. I was just enjoying training so much. I didn't really see an end to it. I didn't see a limit to where my career in fitness would take me. One of my favorite things about training clients, not only seeing them reach their health and fitness goals, but was in those interview times, like when I was first meeting them or kind of checking in on them halfway through, where we wouldn't be out in the gym, but just kind of in the office talking and learning more about them, their story and their goals. And often what we would get to would be someone saying, my goal is to lose 20 pounds. And we would say, well, why? And after some time, they might open up and say, because I think if I lose these 20 pounds, I can finally be happy. Or someone saying, I really want to build my calves. Well, why? I feel really insecure and I want to join a recreational basketball team, but I'm afraid to wear basketball shorts. So showing that these goals meant something more to people than just physically. A lot of times when they were meeting with me, as we got to know each other and they talked more and more, I learned that often what was in their background was something related to mental health. And, they wanted help with this physical issue too, but often there was something mental health or behavioral kind of underlying that. So throughout my time as a trainer, I can remember my evaluations with my supervisor, and he would tell me, Malia, you're doing a great job. Your clients are reaching their goals. But I've heard that you've been kind of talking to them about their mental health, and you just need to remember that that's outside of your scope of practice as a trainer, and we need to just stick to the exercise. And I said, okay, you know what? You're right. So I was still really loving my job. And then 2020 happened and COVID happened and my gym shut down for a long time. I was living in Washington State at the time, and we had some of the tightest COVID lockdown restrictions in place there. So my gym was really closed, and I didn't know when it would reopen. So I'm at home, like we all were, and just had some time to think of what is my next move. And as I mentioned before, a few things kind of led me to make a transition here. So I was concerned about the income, the schedule, and the benefits, and I knew that I needed to have something really stable for me and my son. I also thought about what my supervisor said about, not talking to people about mental health. And I just had this idea of going to graduate school, and I decided to pursue my master's in social work. I knew that this would give me a more stable career, but also I wanted to become qualified to speak to people about their mental health. I could see that so many people were struggling with that on the inside, and I just really wanted to help. I knew that becoming a social worker would still allow me to talk to people about their goals, to develop plans to get better, but in maybe a bit more all-encompassing way than just being a personal trainer. So at the start of the shutdown, I started my Master in Social Work program. So currently here in Florida, I work as a social worker in a public school. And before that, I had completed my internships in community behavioral health and also worked in a substance abuse recovery program. And I really enjoyed that work. So I've worked not only with children and families, of course, in my current role, but also adults, couples, families, community organizations, really a little bit of everything so far. Some of my areas of interest in social work now are anxiety and depression, ways to improve the mental health of children and young people, also studying the effects of trauma, but also learning ways to develop protective factors and also to increase resilience in those who have experienced trauma. I also look at everything through the lens of the social determinants of health. And what I mean by that, these are the non-medical things that contribute to someone's health and overall well-being. So that could be things like, do they have access to services in their neighborhood, in their community? Is their community safe? Do they have equitable access to things like healthcare, education, and food, housing, all of those things. So as a social worker, those are things I'm taking into consideration really anytime I'm working with a student, with a family, of kind of what's going on in the background, in their system, in their environment that contributes to their present situation. And for me, that's really where I bring it all together. Some people might think, how does personal training have anything to do with social work? But when I think of things through that lens of social determinants of health, I mentioned, do they have fair and equitable access to healthcare? I would include access to physical fitness as a part of that. Um, Being able to go to a gym whenever you want, several times a week or whatever, is a privilege. And not everybody has an access to a gym, first of all. Not everybody has time to go to a gym. Not everybody has a vehicle to get to a gym. Some people may have health conditions that prevent them from being in a gym. There are so many things that that can affect that, whether you can do that or not. So when I look at mental health and things that may be going on that affect a person's day to day, one of the things I might ask myself is, how much activity does this person get? How much are they able to get? Is it enough to sustain a positive mood and good overall mental health? So obviously, there are so many other factors to consider in that. Also considering, yes, I definitely believe in mental illness. They are absolutely real, but I always like to consider there are so many other things going on that could be contributing to a person's overall mental health and well-being. So if this sounds like you, if you feel like you're also interested in building those things, you want to connect, learn, and grow with other similarly minded people, go ahead and give me a like and follow. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.